typically have done percentage training with my own body, but it's not the only programming that exists. We will get into this in this video. Max-based percentage training. So essentially, max-based percentage training is a max-based programming. So I could basically, if someone does a 1 rep max of 200 pounds for a barbell squat, you then take a percentage of 75% to 85%, depending on the lifter. You can use the volume training for a 5x5, and you would usually resting on it for 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the lifter. And the volume is the king in the strength training community because we don't do a lot of that hypertrophy because we focus on strength more because we love the 5x5 volume to build up mass. We do not have in programming philosophy. Not to say that you can't work in other training philosophies, but we want to get on that subject. But it basically is important to be perfect circle when it comes to fitness because you want all the different philosophies working all each other, but come back to the whole babies on a separate video. Linear progression. Linear progression is another programming mode that works basically in that you have a lifter squat 200 pounds for a 5x5, and each following bench workout add 5 pounds to a 205 and repeat the action until failure. And depending on the linear progression, to repeat the step in the sort of ways like this: fail one more time and then fail and go 50% of 200 and repeat the process depending on the coach wants to do with their linear progression. And linear progressions also have different ways to start them. And B, or rather, I'll skip the paragraph over. And linear progressions also have different ways to start, and then they have to be with the bar. And a lot of coaches do beginner LPs. And in order to get to a new lifter ready for lifting a barbell, it is really important for lifters to have a beginning LP because it's hard on the lifter with no practice and max, and use volume because they have no practice with the movement. Other ways to use linear progressions, use them instead of normal max-based systems with a max-based system program in a month, and however long your mesocycle, you're going to do the same thing instead of the cut in half. And whatever intensity you have chosen, then have the lifter do a small LP for the mesocycle pounds. You can then the 200 pounds and then bring down the 100s. And for the 5x5, and then the 5 or 10 pounds every workout to the failure to find in the mesocycle, RPE. So essentially what I understand about RPE is essentially that it might have a traditional max instead of a percentage like a 85%. That RPEs, which understood to be representations of percentages, but are instead of percentage, there would be a perceived intensity of 85%. It might be an 8.5 perceived intensity, but the rep actually how the coach slash lifter perceived the intensity of essentially. I remember a graph that about 1 to 10 on a graph, and essentially what one of the easier ways to do this was just to write the perceived intensities as a percentage, like 85%, and then the 8.5 throughout the program essentially be a max-paced program. And different max-paced programs have a actual intensity, which is an issue because if you're ill or sick, etc., you have a lifter doing 85% of your lifting is not ready to do that, and which way is truth that all max-based systems are part RPE because of course they have RPE max-based systems because that is one of the RPE systems do well. Is a weird situation where the lifter has a perceived intensity of the 80%, but percentages that there's RPE, and so there's even lower weight lift from 200 to 100 because the lifter was perceived that way, and that's not the only way why all the max based. Really, some kind of combination of the two. When the lifter is sick or ill, and it's bad enough for fine, take a day off. Okay, references: Mark Rippetoe, Omar Isuf, and Greg Nuckols and all the other coaches in the strength community I did not mention, etc.